Why does Harry have to go back to his aunt and uncle's house every year in the series, after discovering that he's a wizard like Harry? Do you know who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are? And how Voldemort finds out about the Triwizard Tournament to plan everything against Harry? What happened to Barty Crouch Jr.? Where did Harry find the mirror shard he uses to try to contact the person he believes he's communicating with?
These are just some of the things that the Harry Potter movies leave completely open and don't answer for you at all.
Hey wizards, welcome to the Leaky Cauldron. You know what to do. Don't act like a muggle. Subscribe, turn on notifications, stay up to date, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, hit the thanks button to contribute so your comment gets highlighted, or become a member if you prefer. Man, it's amazing how many things the Harry Potter movies leave unresolved when it comes to adaptation. Even because, if you stop to think about it, the story of Harry Potter follows a chronological order, right? The events, they wrap things up nicely in each movie, yes, but some things are left unanswered. Why? Because those are things that are in the books. They didn't bring them into the movies, and they just leave it like that. Understand how people will get it if they watch without having read the books. Read them. It's like that. And today I picked out some of those moments to talk about here. For example, in the first movie, Harry starts off having a very miserable life with the Dursleys. Oh, you scared me, my daughter. Oh my goodness. Hey, you scared me. Daddy's recording, don't do that, okay? Oh my god, Daddy's recording. Do you want to say hi here? Say it here. Look, on the purple one. Say hi, say your name.
Oh, you stopped talking. Go to mommy, go on.
We interrupt our program for you to see. Harry has a miserable life there. Just going back, right? Harry has a miserable life there. With the Dursleys, he finds out he's a wizard, goes to Hogwarts.
We think, wow, his life is going to change now. He's going to live in a peaceful world. Well, not exactly peaceful, right?
As much as possible, but every year he returns to the Dursleys' house instead of spending the holidays at the Burrow with the Weasleys, who would love to have him. And none of this is explained. It's never explained why. There is a reason. Obviously, if someone hasn't read the books or hasn't looked deeper into it, they won't know. Do you get it?
They won't know that there, at the house on Privet Drive.
When Petunia accepted Harry, she sealed a protection that Dumbledore cast a spell for, extending Lily's sacrifice all the way to Privet Drive. And so, since Petunia had the same blood as Harry, right? The blood bond? There, when she accepts him, she seals that protection. That's why, there on Privet Drive, Voldemort can't touch Harry, or even find him. So that's why he has to go back. He had to call that place home. Even though it was awful to live there, he needed to call it home. That had to be his home. That's why he doesn't vacation there or go directly from Hogwarts to the Weasleys' house. And that's something they don't explain in any of the movies, not even now, who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are. If you rely on the movie, no one will know, because in the third movie, which is when Harry gets the Marauders map, right? The Marauders are introduced, but the Marauders story itself is cut from the movie. Simply cut. No one mentions it at any point. Lupin doesn't say, I'm Moony, Sirius is Padfoot, your father was Prongs, Peter. Pettigrew is Wormtail. No one says that. And then, in the next movie, Voldemort shows up calling Pettigrew Wormtail. Harry shows up saying Sirius's nickname, but on screen, that never happened, you know? In the book, Harry finds out, he hears the whole story. He discovers that Moony was Lupin, Padfoot was Sirius, Wormtail was Pettigrew, Prongs was James. But in the movie, no, it's definitely not said. In the movie, it's not mentioned. And then Voldemort just shows up calling Pettigrew Wormtail, which I wanted to know how he knows his nickname. And it's also not shown where Harry finds this out in the movie. And then is Harry calling Sirius Padfoot? He says something like, oh, Padfoot. He caught Padfoot in his hiding place, right? Using the codename with Snape to say that Sirius had been caught, right? So, if you only watch the movie, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Some might argue, but Harry in the story, he knows, right? In the book, he knows, and everything. It doesn't matter if he included it in the movie. He should have explained it then, not wait until the next one. Otherwise, the general audience, not just hardcore Harry Potter fans, gets confused. Who consume everything, dive deep into everything, obviously, right? I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about people who just watch.
In general, a movie isn't made just for fans. It's made for everyone. It has to be made for everyone. It has to connect with everyone.
In Goblet of Fire, the fourth movie, it's revealed that Barto Crouch Jr. is alive and was impersonating Alastair Moody, and he had escaped from Azkaban. Because the whole story, the plot of how he got there is left open, and what happened to him afterward is also left open. Maybe those who only watched think he went back to Azkaban because there's a line from Dumbledore saying, "Send an owl to Azkaban. They'll notice a prisoner is missing," and that's it. The movie doesn't mention his fate. In the book, he gets the Dementor's kiss, right?
He stays there, has his soul sucked out and all, but in the movie, it's like whatever, it doesn't matter.
If you want to know what happened to him, find out. Find out how he kidnapped Moody. Pretended to be him? It doesn't matter. Another thing the movies leave open. How did Voldemort find out about everything? If he was hiding out there in the forests of Albania with Wormtail, who was also a fugitive, how did he find out about something that was a secret, that hadn't even been announced yet? The movie doesn't explain this story. It's completely cut from the film. Bertha Jorkins, who is the key to all of this, is cut from the movie. It just happens. It's Bertha Jorkins. She goes to deliver some papers to Barty Crouch Sr., and she ends up finding out that Barty Crouch Sr. smuggled his son out of Azkaban. Right, everyone thought he had died, but actually it was the guy's mother who had died, not Barty Crouch Sr. And then she finds out, and Barty Crouch says, "Oh no, we're in trouble. I'll cast a powerful memory charm on her," so he casts a spell. Bertha Jorkins was already scatterbrained. She then takes a vacation from the Ministry of Magic to visit relatives in Albania. At an inn there, Wormtail stops to eat, hungry. There, he meets her, and she recognizes him because they studied together at the same time.
Wormtail manages to convince her to go with him. He takes her to Voldemort, and Voldemort and Wormtail torture her.
They learn everything about the Triwizard Tournament from her because she worked with Bartemius Crouch Sr. That's when they discover the truth, devise the plan, rescue Bartemius Crouch Sr., then Bartemius Crouch Sr. and Wormtail kidnap Moody. Finally, they execute the plan.
But for the movie, nobody needs to know that, you know? Nobody needs to know that, man. It's amazing because those who read the book know that, but those who only watch the movie don't.
And I'll say it again, I'm talking about the general audience. I'm not talking about the person who got into it, became a fan, went out researching everything, went to read the book. I'm talking about the general audience. Voldemort just knows. How does he know? He just knows. And what happened to Neville Longbottom's parents? The movie also leaves it open. They barely talk about Neville's parents when Harry finds out, right, that they were tortured. He sees the memory of Karkaroff turning in Barty Crouch Sr. It's a scene I really like, even though it's different from the book. I really like that scene. And then, in Order of the Phoenix, Neville himself talks about it. Right. After Bellatrix escapes, he says, "Oh, my parents were tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange." Sirius even says, when he shows the photo of the Order of the Phoenix, right? They had a fate worse than death.
If you want to know, I want to know, I want to know. What happened to them is not mentioned.
They remain hospitalized at St. Mungo's Hospital to this day, suffering irreversible effects from the torture.
But the movie doesn't tell you that. The movie leaves something else open, and man, this is such a huge flaw in the movies. Such a huge flaw. It's not a small thing.
It's simply what helps Harry escape from Malfoy Manor. Harry in Deathly Hallows. He already starts the movie with a mirror, where he thinks he's seeing Dumbledore's eye there, right? It was from a Dumbledore, but not the one he expected. He's by the mirror and keeps seeing an eye he believes is Albus Dumbledore's. He carries that piece of mirror with him. Bam, the mirror. Now he's imprisoned at Malfoy Manor, captured and feeling desperate, thinking it's over. He takes that piece of mirror that was in his sock and says, "Help me, please." And then Dobby shows up and saves them from there, man. They're simply being saved from a situation they were stuck in. Man, there was no way out, you know? How he got that mirror isn't mentioned in the movies. That mirror was a gift from Sirius. Simply a gift from Sirius. In the book, it's a pair. One stayed with Harry and the other with Sirius, so they could talk to each other. Harry forgets about the mirror, breaks it in his trunk, and only after Sirius dies does he say, "I should have used this, right?" It really came out of nowhere. In Deathly Hallows in the movie, this is cut. There's no mirror in the movie. There's no mirror at any moment. And then, simply in Deathly Hallows in the movie, he arrives with the mirror. And then it turns up at Aberforth's house with a missing piece. Harry's piece. That's an issue, since it's meant to be a pair, right? Aberforth, he buys it from Mundungus, who had stolen things from Sirius's house. Then Aberforth, there's that mirror that's missing, Harry's piece. It doesn't make sense. Harry's piece isn't missing there, because it wouldn't even show up, because that's not how it works. So, in the movie, look, how did Harry get that from the mirror? Where did he get it from? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Another thing the movie handles really poorly and ends up leaving open is the prophecy. In the 5th movie, the plot revolves around the prophecy. That's it. They go to the ministry. Voldemort wants to get the prophecy. The Order organizes to protect the prophecy. Harry falls into a trap and goes to the ministry. There's the battle in the department. The prophecy breaks. And in the movie, we simply hear the prophecy saying, "Neither can live while the other survives." And that's it. Just that. It doesn't say anything else. It doesn't explain anything. Meanwhile, in the book, Dumbledore has a conversation with Harry explaining everything that happened, the reason for that prophecy, how it was made, who made it. That was the reason Harry's parents had to hide. That was the reason Voldemort attacked Harry when he was a baby and all of that. And it even says that Harry didn't have to follow the prophecy. It wasn't a rule, you know? Man, in the movie, it doesn't even explore 2% of that, you know? 2%, so it's something that seemed to have a huge weight. In the movie, it just becomes an allegory there, just a decoration, with a creepy voice saying, neither can live while the other survives. All right, but what does that mean, and how does it go deeper in the movie? It was left open.
Another detail that, wow, this one is left with no explanation at all, is why Harry's wand reacts on its own against Voldemort when they're escaping there at the Potter house, right?
In the battle at the Potter house, Voldemort switches wands. Because his and Harry's were connected, he takes Lucius's wand. And then, when he goes to attack Harry, Harry's wand reacts on its own. Harry is practically unconscious. The wand reacts on its own there against Voldemort. And then Harry is like, wow, how did that happen? Right? My wand reacted on its own, and nobody believed him. Then, while he's in limbo, Dumbledore explains it to him, right? Your relationship with Voldemort is unusual. It's unique. So, your wand recognizes Voldemort at that moment and spits his own spell back at him. Your wand against other people is a completely ordinary wand, but against Voldemort, it was more powerful because it had already subdued Voldemort in the cemetery with Priori Incantatem, and it recognized Voldemort. Like, man, that's important to explain, you know? They don't explain it. They just don't explain it. Another point that's left completely open is how the locket ended up in the Black family's house. When they're there, in Deathly Hallows, they're searching. They find out about R.A.B. Like, wow, R.A.B., Sirius's brother. Oh, creature, there was a locket like that in this house. My master told me to destroy it, and that's all. Where did the locket come from? How did Regulus get the locket? What happened? How did he find out? Nothing matters, because that part of Creature is cut, saying that it was just that, man. That was simply Voldemort's biggest mistake, which led to him starting to be discovered about the Horcruxes. So, it's important, you know, it's really important. What happens in the book is that Voldemort asks to borrow a house elf. Regulus was already kind of regretting having been a Death Eater. Voldemort asks to borrow a house elf. Regulus goes there, lends Creature, and talks to Creature. When you finish what Voldemort asks, you come back. Voldemort goes there and makes Creature drink the potion that was protecting the locket to test if the defenses were reinforced. There, he leaves Creature agonizing, about to die. But Voldemort underestimates elf magic. And then, Creature finishes what he had to do and comes back. Because that was the order Regulus gave, he could leave the cave. But Voldemort didn't even bother to put spells there to prevent elves from leaving. Because he thought the elf would just stay there dying. He didn't care. He thought the elf, I don't know, wouldn't be able to get out, you know? So, it simply shows one of Voldemort's biggest mistakes. One of the many that build up his downfall. His path to destruction. And that's not shown, like, who is Regulus Arcturus Black? Wow, it's just, look, it's Sirius's brother. That's it. That's how it is in the movie, you know? That's how it is in the movie. It doesn't say how the locket got there. None of that, man. Another point that also remains very, very open is Harry's connection with the Peverils, with the mysterious Peveril. In this case, right? In the movie, Harry gets the invisibility cloak in his first year, but we don't know who gave it to him. Later, the book reveals it's from Dumbledore, but the movie never says this. And then, Dumbledore just had the cloak, but why? Why did he have the cloak? Later we find out, right? That it was a Deathly Hallow, that there was the tale of the three brothers. But it doesn't explain that Harry is connected to Ignotus Peveril, who is the brother, the first owner of the Hallow.
It doesn't explain that Dumbledore had the cloak because he borrowed it from James to analyze it, precisely because he suspected it was a Deathly Hallow.
He gives it back to Harry at Christmas when he returns to Hogwarts, saying in a note, "Your father lent this to me before he died. It's time to return it to you. I hope you make good use of it." Okay, that's mentioned. But why did he lend it? Where does it come from? How does Harry have this cloak? It's not explained, because in the book it's explained. Harry says, I'm a descendant of the brother. He visits the grave in Godric's Hollow and says, wow, Godric's Hollow? My family is from here? I'm a descendant of this guy. The movie doesn't explain or mention this. The movie doesn't make it clear that Harry was related to Ignotus Peverell, who was the first owner of the invisibility cloak. That's not clear. This one is also another thing that, wow, it's left really, really, really open. Man, really open. In Deathly Hallows, Harry is there, right? Guided by a Patronus in the forest. He gets there and the sword is at the bottom of the well, at the bottom of the frozen lake, and then he goes there to try to get the sword, almost gets strangled by the Horcrux and all that. So what now? Later, when they're showing Snape's memories, it ends up showing him conjuring the Patronus, and it shows that the Patronus was the same one that was there in the forest. In a very poor attempt to explain, look, it was Snape who did that, but the movie doesn't say who put the sword there. You know what I mean? And it's Snape. It was Snape who put the sword there. It was Snape who conjured that Patronus so Harry could find the sword. But in the movie, they tried to do it in a way, man, they showed Snape conjuring the Patronus while Dumbledore was still alive, and the Patronus going out the window. And then later the Patronus is in the same place. Like, they just wanted to show that it was the same Patronus by putting it in different moments, right? Chronologically? But it made such a mess. Because, man, the Patronus goes out the window and then shows up in the forest. Everyone said no, the Patronus left there and went to the forest, as if, at the time he conjures the Patronus, Dumbledore was already dead. You get it, like, it's confusing, a mix, man, a mess, something the movie leaves open. Another point that's also left open in the movies is why Snape became a Death Eater. You know, in the movies, that's not shown. Mainly because the memory Harry sees of Snape, where he calls Lily a mudblood, is cut. That was cut from the movies.
So, like, we don't have a moment of Snape breaking off his friendship with Lily. There's no Snape getting upset, really angry.
When Lily started dating James, who was his biggest enemy, he didn't become a Death Eater just for that, right? Obviously, he already liked the ideology. It was already something he was attracted to, right? He hung out with some pretty shady people, but that's not shown. That's not shown. And then it just doesn't show the reason why Snape goes to Dumbledore to ask for help. Like, it's not explained like that, you know? In the movie, it just shows Snape arriving, help please. He goes after her, I don't know what, goes after Lily. Okay, but it doesn't say that he was the one who told the prophecy to Voldemort and regretted it. And like, when he found out it was the prophecy, that it could affect Lily, that Voldemort would go after Lily, it doesn't show that, it doesn't show, man, like, it shows in a very shallow way, Snape asking for help to protect and hide Harry, to hide Lily. That's it, you know, to hide all of them, you know, and I think, lastly, to leave it open here, what remains most unresolved is the fact that Harry survived Voldemort's Avada Kedavra in the forest the second time. Why did he survive in the movie? It's not explained. In the movie, it's not mentioned. In fact, a lot of people believe that he survived because Voldemort only destroyed his own part, which was inside Harry's body, and that's it. And Harry had the Resurrection Stone, and that's why. But it doesn't make sense. It has nothing to do with the movie. Doesn't it explain that when Voldemort used Harry's blood in Goblet of Fire to return, which had Lily's protection, it bound Harry to life? That is left completely open, man, completely open. So, someone who hasn't read the books or hasn't looked into it, who just watched the movie, doesn't understand that, doesn't know. Like, oh, why did Harry survive? Because God wanted it, you know, just like that. Because the movie that should explain this doesn't explain it. But that's it, my wizards. Is there anything else you felt was left unresolved in the Harry Potter movies? That they left out in the adaptation and failed to include? We know, right?
An adaptation ends up being different. There are some changes and that's normal, but some things needed to be there. Some points were crucial to be explored in the story.
They were really missed. Tell me here, which one did you miss? What was something that, when you watched the movie, you didn't really understand? Did you only get it when you read the book?
If you watch the movie before reading the book, let me know. Or, if you read the book and notice something missing or unresolved in the movie, share it here.
Alright, see you in the next episode of The Leaky Cauldron. And until then, mischief managed.